It's midnight. You're sitting at your desk, textbook open, the same page you've read 3 times already. But this time feels different. This time it's clicking. You can feel the information settling in, the dates, the definitions, the sequence of events. You close the book, take a breath, and tell yourself, I've got this. You wake up the next morning and it's gone. Not fuzzy, not half remembered. Gone. Like the hours you spent didn't happen. Like your brain waited for you to fall asleep and quietly deleted everything you worked for. And the worst part isn't the forgetting. The worst part is the familiar shame that follows it. The quiet thought that maybe you're just not built for this. That other people remember things easily and you don't. That no matter how hard you try, something in your brain just doesn't hold. But here is what I want you to consider before we go any further. What if the problem was never your memory? What if every hour you spent rereading, highlighting, and reviewing wasn't actually building memory at all? It just felt like it was. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why your brain keeps letting you down. And more importantly, you'll know what to do instead. Here's what's actually happening when you study. When you read something once, your brain registers it. When you read it again, it feels familiar. And familiarity is a feeling that your brain quietly mistakes for memory. This is called the fluency illusion. The more you expose yourself to information, the more recognized it feels, and the more confident you become that you actually know it. But recognition and recall are not the same thing. Recognition is seeing a word on a page and thinking, yes, I've seen that before. Recall is sitting in an exam room with a blank page in front of you and pulling that word out of nothing. One is passive, the other is active. And almost every common study habit, rereading, highlighting, copying notes, trains recognition, not recall. Stay with this for a second. Your brain was not designed to store text. It was not built for dates written on flashcards or definitions arranged in bullet points. It evolved over millions of years in a world of open landscapes, physical spaces, moving bodies, and survival decisions. It remembers where the river was. It remembers what the predator looked like. It remembers the emotion of a moment that mattered. What it does not naturally remember is the third paragraph on page 47. This is not a personal failure. This is biology. The modern student is handed a stack of textbooks and told to read, repeat, and absorb. And when the information disappears overnight, the assumption is that something is wrong with the student. But nothing is wrong with the student. The method is wrong. We are asking a spatial, emotional, story-driven brain to behave like a hard drive, and then wondering why it keeps crashing. The problem is not that you cannot remember. The problem is that you have been encoding information in a language your brain was never designed to read. So, what does your brain actually speak? Space, image, story, emotion. The stranger and more vivid something is, the more your brain wants to hold on to it. You remember the exact restaurant where you had an awkward first date. You remember the face of a teacher who embarrassed you in 3rd grade. You remember the layout of every home you've ever lived in, every hallway, every corner, every room, without ever trying to memorize any of it. Your brain is not weak, it is selective. And once you understand what it selects for, everything changes. This is where the memory palace comes in. The technique is ancient. Roman orators used it to deliver hours-long speeches without a single note. Medieval scholars used it to store entire libraries of knowledge inside their minds. And today, every competitor at the World Memory Championships, people who memorize hundreds of random numbers, decks of cards, names of strangers, uses a version of this same method. The idea is simple. You take a physical space you already know well, your apartment, your childhood home, a route you walk every day, and you use it as a container. Each location inside that space becomes an anchor. And at each anchor, you place a vivid, strange, almost absurd image that represents the information you need to remember. The stranger, the image, the better. The brain ignores the ordinary. It cannot ignore a giant strawberry sitting on your kitchen counter wearing a business suit. Here is the 1% action. Tonight, before you sleep, choose one thing you need to remember. One fact, one concept, one name. Build one image around it, make it ridiculous, make it move, make it feel like something. Then place it somewhere in your home. Just one location, just one image. That's it. That's where it starts. Let me tell you about Maya, 2nd year of university, history major, the kind of student who shows up to every lecture, fills notebooks with color-coded highlights, and spends her weekends rereading chapters she's already read twice. By every visible measure, she was doing everything right, but she kept blanking on exams. Not freezing from nerves, not running out of time, blanking. Sitting down with a question she had studied for days and finding nothing where the answer was supposed to be, like reaching into a drawer and discovering it was empty. After a particularly bad midterm, one she had prepared for all week, she sat in the hallway outside the exam room and didn't move for a long time. She wasn't angry, she was tired in the specific way that comes from trying hard and getting nowhere. The kind of tired that starts to feel like a verdict. That night, almost by accident, she came across the Memory Palace method. She was skeptical. It sounded like a party trick, not a study strategy, but she had nothing left to lose. She started small, her apartment. 5 locations, the front door, the couch, the kitchen counter, the bathroom mirror, the window by her desk. For her next history topic, she took 5 key events and built one absurd image for each. A Roman soldier tripping over her doormat, a medieval monk asleep on her couch with an open scroll, a Renaissance painter arguing with her refrigerator. She felt ridiculous doing it. But the next morning, she walked through her apartment in her mind and every image was still there. Vivid, immediate, attached to the information like it had always belonged there. She didn't become a perfect student overnight. She still had to practice. She still had to build new palaces for new topics, refine her images, find what worked. But something fundamental had shifted. The information stopped feeling like something she was fighting to hold on to. It started feeling like something she had actually built. That's the difference nobody tells you about. Most study methods ask you to absorb. The Memory Palace asks you to construct. And the things we build, we remember. Not because our brain is trying harder, but because building is the language our brain already knows how to speak. Maya didn't get a better memory. She got a better relationship with the one she already had. And that made all the difference. So let's come back to where we started. You, at midnight, rereading the same page, convinced it's working, waking up to find it gone. The problem was never your memory. It was the assumption that exposure equals understanding, that reading something enough times would eventually force your brain to keep it. But your brain doesn't work through force. It works through meaning, through image, through the feeling that something is worth holding onto. Every time you build a memory palace, even a small one, even just 5 locations, even just one ridiculous image placed on a kitchen counter, you are doing something more than memorizing. You are learning to work with your mind instead of against it. You are building the quiet confidence that comes from knowing. When I need something, I can find it. It's there. I put it there myself. That's a different relationship with your own intelligence. Most people spend years believing they have a bad memory. They avoid situations where they might forget. They stop trusting themselves to retain things that matter. And slowly, that lack of trust becomes its own kind of limitation, not biological, but psychological. A story they tell themselves that the evidence keeps confirming. You don't have to keep telling that story. Your brain was never broken. It was never failing you. It was simply waiting for you to stop asking it to do something it was never designed to do. And start giving it something it was built for all along. Space, image, story. That's the language. You already speak it. You just forgot that you did. Ooh.